Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland. Well, this video is about how President Trump's plan to build the Mexico border wall has failed bigly, in a word he would favour. I'm very much one for using these unusual, half-forgotten words like bigly, so it's one I'm going to strive to drop into conversation more frequently. All right, so coming back to the border wall, well, that was his flagship policy when he was campaigning for president, and he didn't have many other policies. Just he had certain applause lines. But this one, it was crystal clear. Everybody knows what a wall is. Okay, it's an image, and that really helped propel him towards the White House. So he's been harping on about this border wall for a few years now. And it was a madcap scheme. Anyone could have told you that in the beginning, particularly the outlandish claim that Mexico was going to pay for it. I've not heard of a single Mexican who said they'd paid so much as a centavo towards it, and why should they? The United States government wouldn't pay for a construction project in Mexico that was only going to benefit them. So in Trump's first 2 years as president, he did nout about it. But now he's a bit worried. Things are going south for him more generally. He's decided he's really got to pull the finger out and do something. Remember, when the Republicans controlled both houses of Congress, he did diddly squat towards achieving this, his most obvious goal. So Congress voted not a cent for his crazy plan when the Republicans controlled it. So the GOP lost the midterms, and obviously the Republicans got jittery. I know the Republicans have retained control of the Senate. They lost the House of Representatives by quite some way, and in terms of popular vote, they lost by 8%. So if that was a presidential election, they would lose quite clearly. So there are falling numbers of illegal immigrants up till then, right? But suddenly this became a national emergency, despite being the number's lowest for 40 years. Emergency only in Trump's eyes. Now, 4,000 people were killed in a hurricane in Puerto Rico a few months ago. Trump didn't give a damn about that. After all, they're only Hispanics. Why would he care about them? You know, they don't even get to vote for the presidency, so he didn't care. And by the way, Puerto Rico voted several years ago to become a state, no longer be U.S. territory, and it's made no headway towards it at all. I suppose the Republicans in Congress don't want Puerto Rico in there for several reasons. It's mostly Hispanic, and all right, there are Hispanic Republicans. Something like 30% of Hispanics vote for the Republican Party. But Puerto Rico, the Democrats are very popular. And so it'd be 2 more Democrat senators and about 4 more Democrats in the House of Representatives. So the Republicans don't want that. I mean, if people want to join America, they're all U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico since the Jones Act of about 1914. So it's not letting foreigners in, just admitting 1 more state to the Union. I mean, the United States has only done that, 37 times, but they won't do it 1 more time. So that was not an emergency at all. But people just crossing the border peacefully, unarmed people coming in or seeking asylum, that's an emergency all of a sudden. Even if they were bringing guns. I thought you loved guns. Everyone should have guns. This right, doesn't it apply to illegal immigrants too? I mean, the Constitution, the rest of it applies. You wouldn't say an illegal immigrant doesn't have the right to a fair trial or doesn't have the right to freedom of expression. Okay, they don't have a right to vote. That's specifically for citizens only. So, note how Trump and his deranged acolytes no longer peddle this blatant falsehood that Mexico will pay a bean for that wall. Pay for it in some form. That changed too. And there was going to be some sort of tariff on Mexican goods. Wait a second, that's American consumers are going to be paying for it because they're going to have to pay more for goods because of this tariff you'd put in there. The wall was becoming a fence. So, you see the red lines have got very blurry. So wishy-washy Trump is. And then, so it's going to be the border barrier. Let's use that catch-all term, because barrier could be wall, could be fence. Some people from Latin America wish to come to the United States. Now, security could have been increased in this January. The Democrats were offering that, more Border Patrol agents, money for that, but Trump said no. It's got to be the wall or nothing. Wall or bust. Well, it was bust. So he's tethered himself to this daft border wall scheme that engineers have said is impractical. Even if it could be constructed, it would take at least 10 years. The price tag's thought to be something like $30 billion. He's appropriated $8 billion from the military budget. So much for being strong on defense. So that's taken away from other things that the US military would like to do. Anyway, so more Border Patrol agents could have enhanced security with immediate effect. And this wall, if it's ever built, which is highly dubious, it shan't take effect for 10 years. If he cares about the military so much, then he wouldn't have taken money away from them. And actually, I recognise that illegal immigration is a problem, and immigration should be down to a reasonable level. There's a numbers issue. Also, there's a quality control issue. Do we want this individual? Is he or she going to contribute to our society? Is he or she in good health, likely to get a job, going to fill jobs that we find difficult to fill, things like that, has no serious criminal record? Anyway, US immigration policy is for the United States government to determine, and every country has its own immigration policy. So it's not a illusionary problem, illegal immigration, but I think there's just an excessive focus on it, as though it's like an existential threat, as though it's the worst thing happening in America. And it's really to set one group of working class people against another, put them in each other's throats, rather than say doing something for the American proletariat, say you're going to have minimum wage, or you're going to have guaranteed health care, or things like that, or a cleaner environment. No. What we're going to do is going to get you to attack the only people who are poorer and weaker than you. That's people who come legally or indeed illegally. And you notice they often don't distinguish between legal and illegal. Some of the alarmists on this issue, that they're all terrible and dangerous, they're perilous, they're coming to murder us in our beds. So they take the very worst illegal immigrants and try and say they typify the whole lot. So illegal crossings were at the lowest level in decades. And a lot of illegal immigrants come via legal ports of entry. They come in lawfully with various visas, as students, as tourists, as business executives, and they just overstay the visa, stay illegally. I've known Irish people who've done it, not so much anymore. But the very low level of illegal border crossings is due to Obama's very tough policy on this issue and his stance on deportations. So you don't see Republicans giving him any plaudits for that. So he doesn't get any credit, really, not really from his own party either, have been uncomfortable with this. So Trump has achieved the impossible. He's increased the level of border crossings, which was falling for years. Well done. What an own goal. So in February, it was the highest since 2011. It had been tumbling and all of a sudden a spike. It's been a spectacular blunder. See how his policy has boomeranged on him. So illegal immigrants are coming in via way of Mexico. That's not to say that they're all Mexicans. Some of them are Guatemalan or from other countries. And now, there's nothing wrong with being a citizen of any of these countries. And obviously, there are millions of Mexican Americans and there are a few Guatemalan Americans. And Trump said that Middle Eastern terrorists were crossing the border from Mexico. I'm not aware of a single Middle Easterner, terrorist or not, who came in that way illegally. There might be some, but I haven't heard of any. If there was one, you can bet your bottom dollar that Fox News would have had that person's face on the screen and so much information, they would have gone into overdrive propagandizing about this. This is how dangerous, it's so terrible that this person's coming in. We're all in mortal peril. So I doubt that there was a single example of a person who met that description. So it was just yet another falsehood invented by the feverish imagination of Donald Trump in a way that he thought would favour his re-election campaign. Perhaps Trump thinks these people come from Nambia. He's great at inventing countries, like America's neighbour to the north is Canada. Is it? Or what? His frequent solecisms prove that his English is far worse than that of many illegal immigrants. I would like to see Trump try and take the citizenship test. So illegal immigrants are not bad per se, not a bad person. I mean, in some circumstances, I would become an illegal immigrant myself, so we shouldn't dehumanize them. And their breach of the law is less grave than those of Donald Trump. And we've got to remember that most Americans, white Americans, their ancestors would have arrived, I suppose, illegally. Look at the 17th century arriving. The Native Americans had their sovereign states, had their chieftains, their forms of government, had their own laws, and the English and other whites arrived, not seeking permission, simply landing on the sovereign territory of another country and saying, well, we're going to live here and we're going to fight them and drive them out. That really was illegal immigration. I know loads of people in all sorts of parts of the world have done this. Irish people have done this in America and elsewhere. In fairness, the population of America was much, much lower in the 17th century, so sometimes the land really was unoccupied. Sometimes terra nullius is a valid argument. That's to say, it's nobody's land and we can just come here and we can just start farming it, claim it for ourselves. All right, sometimes that's valid. There are other times it definitely wasn't, and there were sedentary communities, there was arable farming and all the rest of it. So the uptick in illegal arrivals could be cited as evidence that there is an existential threat to the United States. That's the way the Trump administration would probably like to spin it. But is there a method to Trump's madness? I often have to ask this. No, that would be to attribute far too much intelligence and long-term planning to this snarling, feckless, emotionally incontinent, egomaniacal loon. Because you might say you want to actually provoke more illegal immigration because then you've created a problem that you can claim to be the one to solve. But that would be a bit too convoluted, too clever by half. His speeches are a study in cacology, and I can't say he's got a pleasant voice to listen to. So I don't know, how are they going to report this one, Fox News, which is now more or less a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump organization, because Trump, in his own terms, has been a cataclysmic failure by managing to increase illegal immigration for the first time in 8 years.